Hello and welcome to The Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us, which I understand is our sixth show of the week. God, these are it's ridiculous, isn't it, really? Sixth show of the week. I can tell it cost me a very big sushi meal last night, so my wife was really impressed by that. So we're keeping her happy, which is good. I know Lee McQueen is also likewise trying to keep them happy as best as we can. You know what it is, it's tough these days with, I'll say, what's coming our way. But I'm delighted to have, again, lots of people watching us live. Thank you so much for listening to the show for the first time. You can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify, on Audio Boom. We're across a range of different audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And, of course, as I've just said, if you're watching us live on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. And like I say, thank you so much for all live comments we've got on our screen. Now, we know that you're desperate to talk about transfers. We're always desperate to talk about transfers, but...
We love a transfer, Rick. We love a transfer.
We love a transfer. We love a transfer. We've, I say, got a big transfer countdown show coming your way tomorrow. Last Word on Spurs' team going live for the last 2.5 hours of the transfer window. There's your exclusive. But before we do that, we're absolutely delighted to welcome the co-chairs from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. We've got the brilliant Kat Law, Martin Cloake joining us. Kat, lovely to have you here.
Hiya.
How are you?
Really good, thank you. Well, you know, as good as you ever can be as a Spurs fan in the transfer window, but surviving.
Lovely to have you here, Kat. And also, please, as we've said, we've got the brilliant Martin Cloake with us as well. Martin, how are you? Lovely to have you here.
Yeah, nice to be
Martin.
back on.
Lovely to have you here, Martin. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, listen, I know we're in the middle of transfer season and the comments are going absolutely crazy and berserk. But listen, it's nice to actually, for once, we are going to touch upon them briefly, but talk about more towards the club, the direction, of course, lots of different aspects surrounding what brilliant work you guys do. Guys, listen, we always catch up with you, I would say, at least once every 3 months, 4 months. But for anybody out there that doesn't know what the Trust does, Kat, Martin, do you just want to give us a brief overview of what the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust is and how you do facilitate and help so many wonderful Spurs fans?
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, go for that, Kat.
You go for that, Kat, if you fancy it.
We're an independent organisation. We're a formally constituted community benefit society. We're regulated by the FCA. We're affiliate members of the Football Supporters Association and Football Supporters Europe. And we're basically, our main role is to try and increase the connection and the dialogue between fans, the club, and the community that it serves. So that's, in a nutshell, what we do. We operate primarily off-field. So marketing jargon approaching, we try and improve the fan experience across all fan touch points. So everything that you need to do to enjoy football. So can you get to a game? Is there any public transport? How much are the tickets costing? How accessible is that? Is it correctly policed and stewarded? Are you going to be safe when you get there? What's the F&B, the food and beverage offering like? Are you allowed to stand? What's the approach for stewarding inside the stadium? All that kind of stuff. So all of those touch points we will be all over and work very closely with the club and with Haringey Safety Advisory Group and all that kind of stuff. And so there are, major campaigns that we'd work on around safe standing, around ticketing, around all that kind of thing, broadcast times, anti-social kickoff times, etc. And then obviously key to us at the moment is to make sure that the fan voices are embedded in the heart of the decision making at the club. So we'll touch on that later as well, but making sure that you guys are heard and listened to and considered in every decision that the club makes, basically. That's what we do.
Amazing. Kat, we're 4 minutes in and already we're getting praise to that kitchen. There's a lot of fans for that kitchen again. We might have to start putting feelers out for it.
I know.
I must say that comment does apply to our listeners that are obviously watching us live and maybe the audio version, you may not get that. But Kat's kitchen in the background always seems to get people going. So there you go. We'll have to find out who Kat's designer of that kitchen is and we'll have to pass that along to, like I say, all these fellow Spurs fans. If you want to get Kat's kitchen, give us a call. We'll put the donation line on the bottom there. Right, guys. We're not going to avoid it. We are in transfer season. We are in the last few hours of the transfer window. I must address this firstly. Now, I will address it actually in a minute, not just yet. Let's get our thoughts on where we are right now in this transfer window. Because I think, again, as I've said, as much as it's not going to be a transfer-related show, I know we can't avoid it. And listen, I think if you guys were on Friday, this may very well have been a different opinion piece. So I'm keen to get your views now that there's been some news, not official yet in terms of from Spurs about potential incomings. But Martin, let's come over to you. What have you made of the transfer window? Because I know it's always an interesting time for the Trust. What have you thought of the way Spurs have conducted their business so far as we approach the last 24 hours?
I think you've got to wait till the end of the window to make any definites. But I mean, you're right. On Friday, we were all thinking, I think, we've been here before. We left it all to the last minute after the club's board tried to be too clever by half. Can I actually close a deal? Did I actually plan anything in advance? It would be nice if we could just identify a target and get stuck in there as well. There's a load of rumours around, some of which, most of which you're never going to know whether they were true or not. Some of which seem to be truer than others. So it looked like we were in for Traore. It looked like we did it around a bit too long. And then Barcelona, who apparently haven't got any money, which is why they tried to set up a European Super League, came in and got him as well. So interested to see how that works. And that deal's been financed as well. The two lads that it looks like we're announcing, Kuzelewski and Bentancur from Juventus, I think look like decent signings, actually. And if that does go ahead and everything else stays as it is at the moment, I think that Spurs have strengthened their squad. And, if there's a few players that Conte doesn't think are going to cut it and he thinks are disruptive of being shipped out as well, and you have to back that, it looks like that might be happening. And if we've strengthened our squad and the teams that we're effectively up against for fourth place haven't, then that's got to be a good thing. But, knowing Spurs, they've still got to do the medical. So they can either fail the medical or one of them will turn out to be an NFT or something like that. And then, we'll sort of be back into crisis mode by Tuesday morning again. So but I'm quietly confident that it's been, a decent window. And I know there's that cliche about January being difficult. Clubs can sign players, but there's not a huge amount of business that's gone on. And I think that we've done some of the better businesses out there. So, but the big question is, what roles are these two players being asked to play as well? So, what's Conte got in mind for them? But, mildly encouraging, I think. And it looks like the board's backing the manager, which I think was the big fear that everybody had, that we've seen, in my opinion, Pochettino wasn't backed, and that's why it turned sour in the end. And there's been that question about, are they going to do that? So it looks like they've at least said, well, we've heard what you say, need a bit of a freshen up, we need some new players in. And so, who have you got? And you assume that him and Paratici are identifying the targets and then saying, go and do the deal. So,
Yeah, no, again, it's a crazy time transfer season. And I say what it means is now, obviously doing a show tonight, is I've got to try and nail these names in advance and potentially joining us, which always is a pain. So we're going to go for it. So Spurs, currently as things stands, are in advanced negotiations with Dejan Kulusevski. There you go, that's too bad. And of course, Rodrigo Bentancur. Now, I've had some
AKA Ricky Sacks. AKA Ricky Sacks.
He's a dead ringer for you, mate.
Well, I've got to say, Joe, I made this joke off air, so this won't be as funny now. But I've got to say, I mean, I cannot see the relevance in him, but what a bloody good-looking bloke that one is. I tell you, that Rodrigo fella, what a bloke. If he plays as well as he looks, we've got a winner there already. So what a great start that is. Lee, let's get your thoughts on, so far, the two Juve lads coming in and potentially some outgoings. Thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, I'm sure we'll get into it later on as well, especially having both Martin and Kat on as well. But, I think most people know my views on our recruitment process and actually the in-depth way that we go about recruiting players. I think it's been a bit of a crazy train. I name it a whole crazy train when you're a Tottenham fan. But, having a little bit of the same agreement really with Martin. The two lads coming in seem to have strengthened in the areas. The thing is about the transfer window is there's about 1,000 people, 900 different players are linked with you that we get totally disappointed with just because somebody somewhere has said, oh, they've been linked, and then we don't end up signing them. But the reality of the situation is if Conte is happy, then I'm happy. That is the reality. The definition for me of backing Conte isn't necessarily giving him 65 million to go and spend on Tinga and Dembele, because that didn't work out very well, did it? The definition of backing Conte is going, well, you wrote a list, and the list is you don't want Dembele, you don't want Dele Alli, you don't want Giovanni Lo Celso, seemingly. So can you move them on, please? And actually, I need another forward, I need a centre midfielder, and I need a right wing back. And actually, if we can get them positions out and them positions in, which seemingly we're starting to move now, then that for me is the definition of backing Conte. So I'm a lot happier than I was probably 4 days ago, when I've been really trying not to get all het up in the whole transfer thing. But it got to me, Rick, Kat, Martin, and viewers and listeners. It got to me because at the end of the day, what I can't understand is that Paratici's been there for 7 months, 8 months or so, and I think you read a tweet out from a friend of the show, Paul O'Keefe, yesterday, and I think he was spot on it. He's been there 7 months or so. Surely we must have had, whether or not we've got lots and lots of targets lined up, because we do know from a lot of different reports, and specifically from Fabrizio Romano as well, and Damasio through Michael Bridge, that look, Paratici likes to have lots of different targets for lots of different positions. We know that. So it feels to us fans like a scattergun approach, but ultimately he likes to have lots of different players in the positions or targets, and then he'll whittle them down, and ultimately he'll get the ones that he can actually get towards the end. So I suppose I've just answered my own question, but from a fan perspective, you're walking into a January transfer window that you know that Antonio Conte needs some help and support with players, yet we're waiting until the day before. I mean, it's great that these players might be coming in, but I have to still say might, because none of them held the shirt up yet, right? So something might still happen, and we can go away. And it's not just about doing your business early. We've done our business early with Tungo and Dembele, and look how that turned out. Giovanni Celso, exactly the same. Ryan Sessegnon, Jack Clarke, 130 odd million pounds we spent in that transfer window alone, and it was a failure, but it wasn't a failure to spend money per se. It was a failure in the people that we brought in. Hence why my comment around the recruitment process needs to be sorted. Without giving Paratici too much of a hard time, he's been there for 7 months. But equally, surely with the network and the contacts, why are we seemingly scrabbling around within 2 days left of a transfer window when we should have been getting our signings done early? And I'll point to two clubs. Firstly, Aston Villa. I think you pointed this out yesterday on the transfer special show. They've gone out there, they've identified a couple of targets that they needed. Coutinho, bang, he's in. He's already played. He's already scored. And Lucas Digne as well, who is probably behind Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson. It's probably one of their best top 3, top 4 fullbacks in the Premier League. Premier League proven, of course, as well. So they can go and get that done. No one saw them signing Callum Chambers. No one saw them signing Danny Ings. So it can be done, and it is being done by other clubs that are, no disrespect to Aston Villa, because I think they're becoming a really well-run club. But you would expect, or maybe our expectations are wrong, but you would expect players wanting to come to Tottenham, being in London, massive stadium, a huge fan base where we are. Antonio Conte, top 5 manager. And it seems like that they're doing their business different. Let's put it this way: they're doing their business differently to how we are. Would that be probably more fairer to say? Yep. And I think for most Tottenham fans, we've seen it before. We've seen it time and time again, and we are in a situation where I personally, if we don't sign anyone in January, I still think we get a better points haul in the second half of the season than we have in the first half of the season. And to
because Conte's here.
Because Conte's here. And that's not going to save him. He might walk by the summer if we don't back him. That's my biggest concern. But in terms of actually on the pitch, we've just had Romero out for the best part of nearly 3 months. Son's been injured for January. Dyer's been out. And although Rick, you probably wouldn't have been worried about Dyer being out before the season started.
now he is out. Now I'm worried.
Yeah, no, sure. But look, at the end of the day, he's been a really good player for us, and they've been out, right? So if you look at the table, in the last 12 years, 72 points gets you top 4 on average over the last 12 years of the Premier League. In the last 3 years average of the Premier League, 68 points gets you top 4. So my question to everyone else having a meltdown about transfers, and I have been one of them, so I'm not, I am having a meltdown as well. Do we honestly think that we will not better our points total in the second half of the season, bearing in mind Antonio Conte walked into his football club and we'd already lost 5 games already? So we've already accumulated 36 points from the first half of the season, which is a halfway point. 72 points gets you top 4, pretty much guaranteed. I think we'll go, but we still constantly need to strengthen and put players into the team that are going to improve the team, not just come and sit on the bench. And we've had that enough. So sorry for the waffle.
Amen. Now I've got to pass back over to him to start the show.
I know, sorry.
Well, that was it.
That's it. Show's over. No. Right, now he's done that. Let's pass back over to him. Lee, over to the kickstart.
Here's my question. And actually, I just want to cover that off on transfers, right? So we'll do some more transfers later on.
I'll take some questions about my front room now, if you like.
I know, there's loads.
Between you and Kat, we've got the house covered. We'll just change the changing room, shall we? Location. Who needs a Spurs podcast?
So Kat, it's already actually been mentioned in the comments, but they've gone so far up because I've been waffling on for ages, so forgive me. But there is a 25-foot Spurs legend on Tottenham High Road now, the Ledley King mural at Tottenham Community Sports Centre. It was commissioned and part funded by the Trust, obviously your good selves, and you've said you hope it will be the first of a number of initiatives to make the history of Tottenham Hotspur more visible in and around the area of the stadium. Can you tell us how you felt being so closely connected, so incredible? I mean, it is amazing. How did you feel? And hopefully will that last a lifetime, Kat?
It was brilliant. I think that's probably an understatement. We were so pleased with the reaction, which was just universally so positive. Like, it was covered on BBC London News, and the Evening Standard had it, and it was, all the fanzines, podcasts, fantastic reception. You probably believe me when I say that being the co-chair of the Trust and being involved with the Trust, it's very rare that we do something that people appreciate and B universally love. So it was a very strange feeling, but it was brilliant. It's if you haven't seen it yet, it's on the side of the boxing gym at the Tottenham Community Sports Centre, opposite the number 8 pub, so almost opposite the stadium. Fantastic. And it was really difficult to keep it quiet, particularly when it was being painted. That's not something you can hide very easily. And we had a couple of games that snuck in that we weren't expecting between the time we started painting it and the unveiling. So that made things even more complicated. It was about 18 months in the planning. And Rob White on our board, who many of you will probably know is the son of John White, who obviously played in our double side. It's really been his baby. I think he'd been extremely inspired by street art and football murals that he'd seen on the continent on his travels, could never really understand why it wasn't a thing in England as much. And it was something that he thought would really help to embed the history and heritage of our great club in the community immediately around the stadium. I think, Haringey and Tottenham especially is one of the most diverse communities, certainly in London, if not in the country. And there are people living there who don't know everything about Tottenham and the football club that they should do. And we wanted it not only to try and connect and for the fans of the football club to really appreciate seeing part of their history, like living and breathing outside the stadium, but also to try and draw that community in. So that was kind of Rob's vision. We were aware also that fans felt there perhaps wasn't enough history in or around the stadium. We've had the ongoing discussion around statues and marking our, previous legends, etc., etc. The club has been quite clear in that they don't feel that a traditional statue is fitting with the style of an ultra-modern stadium, and that they would rather do something that was more innovative to mark our history and our heritage. So the statue thing is kind of to one side. So we wanted to do something that was more contemporary also. The original idea, Rob's original idea, was to commemorate the 61 double winning side. And that would have been last season when we had the big anniversary. I don't think any of us realised quite how complicated it was to get a mural off the ground. So as I said, Rob's been working on this for about 18 months, much more complicated than we originally thought. You need to find a suitable site, of which there aren't that many in the local region. Any suitable site seems to be owned either by the club or by Haringey Council. There's if it's a Haringey Council property, you need to go to a public consultation before you can get permission, quite rightly, but it obviously becomes much more complex and slows things down. If it's a club property, then they may or may not want to lend us that wall. There's so much regeneration going on in Tottenham at the moment as well, that a lot of the potentially earmarked sites might not be around for more than a year or so. So there was a case of wanting something, as Lee said, that would last a lifetime also. So when we found a site, and thank you to Kevin Lincoln, who is a manager at the Community Sports Centre, when we found a site that was spot on, we were so delighted. And Ledley just seemed to be the absolutely perfect choice at that moment in time. because not only was he the absolute embodiment of a one club man, and you're not going to get that many more of those in this era, but he can be an absolute role model to the kids that use that boxing gym, to the kids that are growing up in and around the stadium. So fantastic choice. He was really humbled, and he's been amazingly supportive throughout this whole thing. We kind of wanted him to cry, because he never cries. He almost got there. There's a beautiful video of when he first saw it, and it's very moving when he says, this is amazing. I can look at this and I'll be forever young. And that's amazing. Honestly, fantastic. So I was speaking to Rob before I came on this, because I absolutely knew that you were going to ask me about the mural, obviously. And I said, it really is Rob's baby and brainchild. Rob has a vision that this is just the first. This is just the start of the mural project. It's not the end. And his long-term plan is to get a series of murals established in the area, various scales, a variety of subject matters. We're in touch with the Leeds United Supporters Trust, because in this country, they've actually got a very good reputation for doing street art and doing murals up in Leeds. So we wanted to try and tap in there. I mean, they work with a lot of local artists. They get businesses involved, and they get sponsorship to try and keep the costs down, because the Ledley King mural cost about £5,000. This is not cheap. It's a big investment. So, you've got to look at that moving forward as well. We've asked for any fans who have ideas as to subjects or images, or somebody who may have a wall in Tottenham that they'd be willing to let us use, that they're allowed to grant permission to get in touch with Rob. And you can email him at rob.white@thstofficial.com, and we'll basically maybe put that out on your channels later so people can get in touch with Rob directly. We don't necessarily have to own the whole project, but we've obviously amassed an awful lot of knowledge about how you actually navigate getting a mural done. So we're very willing to share that with overseas supporters clubs or other fans that might want to get involved and help supplement this project. And as I said, this is hopefully the beginning, not the end. I think it looks fantastic. If we could have another dozen of those dotted around, it would be just something that I think fans would go and want to go and look at. We could maybe link them up with QR codes, so you'd scroll over, get some instant Tottenham history, and it's not
fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
I must say, Kat, you won't. Go on, Martin.
I was going to say, I've just seen a few of it, so I can't get into the comments and concentrate on this at the same time, because I'm obviously an old man. So, but there's quite a lot of conversation going on in the comments, and sort of people saying, but a bit disappointed about the club stance on statues anyway, and whatever. I think what was really good for me about this is that we knew, and we've got as an organisation the opinion as well, that there needs to be more kind of visible presence of our history in and around that stadium as well. And we thought we can keep arguing about a statue or not a statue, or we can try and come up with something that does happen. And what we tried to focus on was making something happen. And that's what we always do. We might not always shout about it. And as Kat said, a lot of this work was going on behind the scene. And Rob White worked unbelievably hard and with an unbelievable amount of patience to get this project done as well. So, and I know, some people are still going to find it disappointing. They'll say, well, the club should be celebrating in different ways. If we can get the thing that Rob's kind of got a vision for, and that Kat just mentioned, which is, quite a few of these projects, and it might not all be murals, there might be different ways that we can do things as well. But Rob and Pete Hayne, who's our trust secretary, and Julie Welsh, who people know, Julie Welsh, the author and journalist, who's written the biography of Tottenham Hotspur as well, have got a kind of a local history, Spurs history walk that goes around the stadium in the local area as well, and we're trying to link it in with things like that. So all of this stuff can kind of really Spursify the area, and it can make us proud of what we are and what we're about. And so our focus is on, what is it that we can get done, rather than have a set piece argument over one particular thing. And hopefully people understand that. But as Kat said, if people have got ideas, then let us know, and we can try and help you out. We don't have to run everything. We can pass on what we've learned. We can try and help out in whatever way we can. But this is something that the community, the local community, and the community of Spurs fans really should be involved in as well.
Can I just make one more point there, because I'm seeing some names.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Part of the complication is also having to get permission from the legend's family or from the legend to be using a mural. So that's obviously a stumbling block occasionally as well. So that's something that you might want to consider.
Yeah, I must say, in amongst the comments, guys, there's been so much love for both of you. And I know you won't be saying this, but I mean, I'm going to say it to you guys. I mean, the work you both do is just quite incredible. And I know, again, social media and the tool of social media, as we can all know and see, sometimes it's not used in the most positive of lights. And again, we're part of that as well, unfortunately. It's one of those things that we live in a world now where sometimes, unfortunately, the most negative voices get held the loudest, rather than the thousands of positive messages that you guys get. And I just want to again re-emphasize that the work Kat and Martin do is just quite incredible. You know, it's voluntary work. You know, they're not paid by the football club or paid by anybody for what they do. It's for their love of Tottenham. It's for their love of helping people, and for the love of supporters, for wanting to see Spurs become a better place to go, for wanting to see the club grow, be ambitious, like we all want. I think we all want the same thing. We all want to see Spurs win trophies. We all want to see Spurs, you know, go for the best players. We all want to see Spurs ultimately go and win the big prizes. So I think it's important just to remind everybody of that we all want the same thing. We all want that. So, and everybody wants to maybe go different ways about it. And this is the thing, isn't it? Where you can't please everybody. And I've learned that in life, unfortunately. It's impossible to please everybody. So you can only do what you can do. And again, guys, you do a fantastic job. And we love having you on here. And again, the comments here represent just how much hard work you do and how much people love what you do. So always great.
Thanks,
Kat,
Ricky.
No, our pleasure. Our pleasure. Kat, what I do want to discuss on is a bit more in terms of the inner side of the club now, because on one of your recent statements, you said that you're disappointed to see the prices of food and drink at the Spurs Stadium increase for the second time this season. I want to ask you personally, what do you think that says about the club's attitude to its supporters?
Yeah, so I'm going to just shout out another board colleague, Rachel Martin. She is a person who leads our work on catering, so F&B, food and beverage, with the club, and she's worked really hard since we were at White Hart Lane and the transition via Wembley into the new stadium to try and build that dialogue with the catering team there. So, you know, obviously she's a lady who wrote the statement for her. She's been in all the meetings, and she, like the rest of us, was bitterly disappointed to hear that there'd been a second price rise this season. I think the club have explained why they've done it. But I think that demonstrates just how disconnected they are from the actual real world. I mean, people are having to starting to make some really tough choices now. So our national insurance is about to go up. Our energy bills are about to rocket. That disposable income is becoming squeezed, and we're not cash cows. So when everything starts going up, to then put food and beverage up in the stadium even more, that becomes a nice to have, not a necessity. So people are going to be driven to eat elsewhere, or maybe even eat at home. So, and I also think there's a feeling that the benefits aren't always passed back to us, but that we're asked to carry the burden all the time. So there was actually a VAT reduction on food and drink, and that was never passed down to us. But when the VAT goes back up again, let's see if they try and push up a third price rise. You know, we've been very clear that we expect them to absorb any more increases this season. We appreciate the difficulties that they're under, but this shouldn't be the fans looking to sort out. You know, basically look at a less expensive menu maybe. And this is not only about the food and beverage. They're also slowly eroding the concessions for seniors and for young adults. Our ticket prices are ridiculously expensive. Like, our transport system is you know, basically rubbish to try and get people to and from games at antisocial times when they're constantly moved for broadcast to things like Saturday night for next weekend's game. So, and then the football's not exactly set the world alight. So you've got all these things going on, plus the pandemic. So people have broken their habit of going to see every live match and realize they can actually survive without being there. So all of this is now impacting on people's choices. So it just felt really, as I said, disconnected and a bit tone deaf, to be honest. There's a bit of a feeling that the standards in the general admission area of the stadium are slipping as well. So I'll give you a small example. I mean, it's ridiculous. It takes a ridiculous amount of time to get served. Half time, forget it. If you're not out of your seat on like 37 minutes, you ain't getting served at half time. The staff look constantly bewildered and puzzled that there's an influx of people for 15 minutes in the middle of a football match. That shouldn't be breaking news to anyone. You know, that's basically going to happen. But also, we're now playing, as Martin and I call it, soap and water roulette in the toilets. So we're just coming out of a pandemic. I know Boris said it's done, but we're still coming out of a pandemic, and there's no soap in the blinking toilets, and half the taps don't work. We've been asking about this. And apparently, of course, they have the leading system of soap dispensers in the entire world installed, where everything is pumped through a central system. But now the pipes don't work. So there's no soap. It's just crazy things like this are really starting to grate on people's nerves. So
you know what's going to happen now, though, don't you? That the headline from this show is going to be, they shouldn't be talking about winning trophies and signing players, and all they talked about was the bloody soap. You know, that's it. That's the social media narrative for the next
breaking. We've just announced a deal with Dove tomorrow. There won't be any signings. We've got Dove.
Yeah, what's up?
This is the breadth, isn't it? let's be honest, this is the breadth that you and the trust go to. It's all the way from, you know, soap all the way through to winning trophies or transfers or whatever it might be. You know, it's warts and all. And I completely concur with everything you've just said, Kat. Now, I go to every single home game. I try to get to away games, but I go to every single home game, my season ticket, which again, controversial to report, I do pay for, right? And it is my own season ticket that I actually own. And the soap thing is absolutely disgraceful. Like, you can't go into the toilet and have no soap. No, it's just ridiculous. There's the price hikes as well. And again, I'm just talking as a pure fan now, with no allegiances to anything other than just being a pure fan. Me and my mates go there. Steph, my best mate, I've known since I was like a young lad and whatever. We went up there a few weeks ago. I can't remember which game it was, you know, last home game or whatever it was. And he's like, these pies, man, they're not as good as what they were. Like, there's something changed, and we couldn't put our finger on it, but there's something changed, and it feels like there's a cost-cutting exercise going on there.
So they changed the sausage roll supplier, so we have lobbied to get that reverted back.
I'll be honest, that's been in the comments about the it's been in the comments about the sausage rolls. Yes,
to try and get I don't know if they've changed the pie supplier or not. Potentially.
Right.
Definitely something has changed.
Only Spurs could change the sausage supplier and the manager in the same season.
Yeah. So also as well, I mean, following on from that, actually, you know, quite heated debate about sausages and soap. You know, it's been reported that we're losing around £165,000 in revenue per home game this season. And Spurs' new stadium has an average of around just over 8,284 actually is the exact figure of empty seats every single game this term. The highest out of any other Premier League. Study from OLBG has found that North Londoners' losses in potential revenue per home game will be the highest in the Premier League. How concerning is that fans seem to be voting almost with their feet in terms of attendances that are dwindling? We'll come over to you, Martin, but also, do you think that there's more than 1, 2, 3, or even 4 factors on that? You know, COVID and all the things that we've talked about. Is that got something to do with it, or are fans generally saying, "Well, I'm not having this anymore"?
It has, and it's a really interesting question, and I'm going to hand over to Kat to answer a bit of it because she's kind of the ticket guru. But it's interesting because people probably know I'm a journalist. I don't work in sport. I kind of work in finance, and some of this stuff drives me nuts. Now, I got sent sight of this report before it came out by a media contact, and it took me about 30 seconds to work out that the kind of methodology they've used wasn't particularly good. So what they've done is that they've said, okay, the capacity of Spurs is this, the attendance that they've quoted is this, the average price of a ticket is this, so therefore they've lost this amount of money. Now, there's a difference between the amount of money you lose and the amount of money you lose out on, and it's a really important difference. But the point is that unlike the other mob down the other end of the Seven Sisters Road, our attendance figures are the people that actually go into the stadium. Right, so when it's like completely empty, it's not got a full capacity as well. Okay, so we'll quote that number. They'll say the number of people that have gone into the stadium on a given time. That doesn't mean that that's the number of tickets they've sold. Okay, now, you know, Kat will tell you this. Me and her are probably about 300 quid down this season on our season ticket for games that we couldn't get to for reasons around COVID or whatever, and we couldn't shift our tickets on exchange. Right, the club's still got that money. They won't quote that as an attendance figure. Right, so it's not quite the story that's been picked up that we're losing all that. Now, that isn't to say that if you look at some of the attendance figures that were quoted, you know, there is evidence of people voting with their feet. And I think there's a combination. I think the pandemic is a part of it. I know people who can't go because they still live with vulnerable people, and they still can't go even though our beloved Prime Minister has decided that this pandemic no longer exists anymore as well, because it's still out there. So they won't be able to go to matches. Yeah, they won't be able to go to matches at all. Right, so that's one factor. There's kickoff times that are inconvenient. There have been games where they haven't opened up the whole stadium, so the top tier's been closed as well. And anecdotally, we know that, you know, there are quite a lot of people now, as season ticket holders, who are saying, you know what, the pandemic's changed things, and I've realised that, you know, I can miss a match here and there, and actually the world doesn't come to an end. I don't have to do it. I've got other things to do with my weekend. And they are trying to pass their tickets on, or they're taking the hit as well. So there's a bit more churn. So that story isn't kind of quite what it was. And I mean, I know Kat knows a bit more about the mechanics of the whole thing as well.
Yeah,
but it's one of these things that it drives me nuts about my colleagues in the press, because it gets printed in one place and everybody picks up on it without really examining it properly and working out what it means.
Yeah, there isn't actually. You did very well there, Martin. You've obviously paid attention to the ticketing side of things over the
well, there
years.
you go. So no greater praise than that up for the ticketing guru.
The only other thing to say.
Sorry, do you think then that there is something to do with the cost? Because, you know, again, just thinking about it, you know, with people that I hang with and go with, and so on, there used to be a massive benefit to getting a season ticket. And now you can go and get on pretty much on general admission, or, you know, through the ticket exchange, you can go and get tickets virtually for any game. And, you know, so the benefit of me buying my season ticket, get my loyalty points, being able to go away. I've applied for every single away game this season, and not once have I got in. I know how many loyalty points I've got. I'm happy to share them with you, right? I've got 214 loyalty points, right? That's all I've got. But that has not got me any away game, not one. So I applied for every single away. I haven't got one at all. So I can't increase my loyalty points because there's no way, because I haven't got enough loyalty points to go to an away game in the first place. But then when we're talking about the home games, there's so many empty seats around that you're thinking to yourself, what's the point in having a season ticket? Maybe, you know, I just come, maybe I'll sit over in the east one day, or I'll sit in the south one day, or I'll sit in the west one, and I share the experience around. Is that how football's going now?
Yeah, I mean, these are all the big questions that we asked the club to consider when they went from 18,500 season ticket holders to 40,000 season ticket holders when we moved from White Hart Lane into the new stadium. It was a massive, massive uplift. And the relationship between a season ticket holder and that ticket was obviously going to change. So we've always asked them to be really clear about their proposition. So for me, a season ticket was exactly what you'd said. It was a way of me giving my money up front, and I got something back in return, which was the 2 cup games thrown in. And it was a slightly cheaper price per game, worked out against you buying them match by match. And then it would be access to a ticket for a final or a semi-final, and potentially some away games when I've been to enough home games to build up the points to get to the away games, because that's obviously how you build up your points, Lee, with the home Europa Conference League games, with the home cup games in the League Cup and the FA Cup and all that kind of thing. But I vastly do appreciate that it's extremely difficult to get on that ladder for away tickets. I really do appreciate that. But now we've got so many season ticket holders, and I think the relationship between some people and their season ticket is now completely different. It was bought as an investment. They'll pick and choose the games that they go to. They'll move the rest around their family via ticket share. They'll post on the ticket exchange. It's not that I'm going to go to a home game every 2 weeks. It's what I do. Like the old season ticket holders, the legacy fans, the 18,500. Yeah, I think a lot of them are still in that habit of, this is what I do. It's part of my identity. I'm a season ticket holder. I go to every home game, and I want to go to as many away games as possible. But I don't think that is a majority view anymore. I think that people are far more transactional in their relationship with their season ticket. And I think that could or could not be a benefit to the club. Had the pandemic not hit, probably a great benefit to them, because I think they'd rather have the one-offs who come in and spend shitloads of money in the club store. We don't. I never go into the club store. Yeah, I'll go and buy a couple of pints in the ground, but I'm not going to be spending £150 in the club shop like Joe, who comes over from San Antonio and goes once a year, does. So if you're looking at it from a revenue point of view, then I'm sure that they were quite happy with that kind of model. But these are all massive questions. And when we ask them to clarify their strategy, it's not only about on-field. This is a business plan. When you're moving from a stadium the size of White Hart Lane to the size of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and you're massively increasing your season ticket holder base, you need to be really clear on what you're trying to do with those people. And we certainly never got a straight answer. I'm not sure that they necessarily had a long-term plan for that.
Oh, listen,
and the tickets were too expensive, which is what we said at the time.
Yeah,
a lot of people said to us, "You lot are living in Cloake Cuckoo Land. That's the market price." And now apparently it's too expensive, and we never did anything about ticket prices. So, and we pushed really hard to try and get people to really kick back on ticket prices, and it didn't happen.
Yeah,
but we're not pushing really hard for a minimum of a freezer game this year. They're already.
We've already had that discussion.
Everybody is, literally feeling the squeeze. So please, fingers crossed, they'll at least do that.
Fingers crossed.
Sorry, but just on that, because there was a few comments in there as well about an increase, like 5% increase, 7% increase, whatever it might be. I mean, there is increases everywhere. When we come out of this pandemic, and we're still kind of in it, but when we're coming out of pandemic, not just for the football club, but for any businesses, you're going to need to try and, claim back, if you like, or claw back some of the horrific losses that most businesses have suffered over the last kind of 2 years. So I don't have a problem per se with them, clawing some of it back through price hikes or even price hikes on food or whatever to a certain degree, but there has to be some sort of limit, right? I understand that if we're playing the highest season ticket prices in Europe, the football's got to be decent, right? Or the experience has to be decent, or we should be signing players before 2 days before transfer window finishes. Do you see what I mean? That's where the fans get frustrated, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We said that at the time. We said to the club, you're making a rod for your own back. And I think that's one of the reasons why there is quite a lot of discontent. Now, where people want to take that is another question. But I think, people are, and that's said fairly regularly, the point that you made exactly, Lenley, that, we're paying top dollar and they can't keep saying, well, we can't compete, we can't do whatever. Now, maybe that is changing around and, there is debt associated with the stadium and yada, yada, yada. There's all of that. But, you have to look at that. And I think, football as a whole, this discussion is going on right across the business that, what has the pandemic changed? And I think a lot of football clubs and the football business thought this is a brilliant product with a captive market and we can just keep printing the money. Now, I'm not suggesting the bubble's going to burst anytime soon, but I think that there has been a little bit of a change in attitude. And I think that any decent business, if you want to call it that, and that side of it is business, has got to think about that, and they've got to be a bit smart about keeping their audience. This idea that there's always someone else that will come along. Well, it might be, but what they bring is a different. Maybe they're more impatient, for success. And I mean, we've been accused, haven't we, of being impatient for success over the years. Yep. Still the loyalist bunch of supporters. I know I would say that, but if you look at the loyalty that this club inspires and the numbers that still follow it compared to the number of trophies that we've won, over the last 20 years, then second to none as well. But there is greater impatience because, people are saying, well, I just want that instant success because that's what the money is. And as Kat said, they haven't got, it doesn't make one set of people worse or not. It's just a different attitude that those kind of old legacy season ticket holders were very much like, I'm working through thick and thin. And a lot of people now are like, well, actually, I'm going to exercise a bit more judgment on that. And they've got every right to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to go for our first break of the show. For our listeners that are on audio, we've got so much more, of course, coming your way for listeners on audio. For watching us on YouTube, there's nearly over 1,000 people watching us live. So thank you ever so much for all your incredible support on an evening where we've got the brilliant Kat Law, Martin Cloake, the co-chairs of the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. We are taking a very brief pause from the January transfer window after doing 7 shows in the last 8 days. I hope you understand. Just a little bit of a break.
A couple of questions coming up tomorrow, haven't we, Rick?
We have. I must say,
you ain't getting any sleep tomorrow.
I'm writing this. Do you know what? It makes me laugh. I have not had it, Martin. I promise you. Everyone keeps asking why these bags are under my eyes. I've got no shame in telling this now to the last one of Spurs audience. Yes, I am taking anti-aging cream at 32. That's also having a little one that we're still rocking to sleep after 14 months. And if someone's got any ideas, feel free to send them in below, and we'll try and take them on. And me and my wife will try and get back to you in due course. Because at the moment we are bloody struggling, but he is the best thing's ever happened to us. So to caveat that, just in case she's watching this, he is still amazing. But listen, we've got lots more to come. We've got lots more transfer shows to come. But I've got to say to you, I will be so glad when this bloody transfer window is over. I cannot wait for it to end mentally, physically. I'm emotionally drained. And I'm looking forward to getting some sleep, which will be quite nice. Right, after that little rant. Kat, let's come. Well, actually, I'm going to throw this question in. Kat or Martin, you can pick this up. This is from one of our, he's actually been on the channel recently, JP, who says, as a club, how can we control the media reporting? We seem to be treated very differently to other clubs. Are you working with Donna, and obviously it calls Donna Cullen there on the Tottenham Hotspur board, on improving relations with the press? Who fancies that question, guys?
As a journalist, I'll let Martin have it.
Yeah, I'll go with it. It's a bugbear of mine, and I've argued with Donna, and she'll probably phone me up and shout at me again when I say this. But I think that the club's relationship with the press, that it could and should be better. I don't think that they particularly play it particularly well at all. The press don't always get it right, but some of it is that you have to know how to play the game. And I think that the club has a view that the press are there to put out what the club wants them to put out. And if anybody kind of cuts across or makes any criticism, then they kind of like, the wagons are circled and they have to kind of have a go and bash them down. And, you know, there's a hairdryer on the phone or whatever. And Spurs have got that reputation in a number of areas, but certainly on the press front, of being really difficult to deal with. And I think that, you know, it hasn't always been the case. And the club in the past under previous regimes has tried to cultivate relationships with the press, which doesn't mean letting the press get away with everything, but it means knowing how stuff works. You know, we had for years, we had a great press officer, a guy called Simon Felstein.
It was
really, really well respected.
Lovely guy.
Across the business as well. Who did a really, really good job in really difficult circumstances, but it's not the easiest club to work for, as people can probably imagine. Simon's kind of moved on to pastures new. I think there's kind of a bit of a reorganisation in there as well. And, you know, I think Spurs get a lot of unfair press, and I think they get a lot of fair criticism, but I think that they make it easier for people to get stuck into them because they don't try and cultivate that relationship. So I'd agree with Jay on that there does need to be a bit of an effort made to try and cultivate those relationships. But, you know, it depends what they want it for. I think that our board, like a lot of people in football, they don't particularly like being asked to explain themselves, and they don't particularly like being questioned. But it comes with the territory, you know. You're running a football club, so.
Yeah.
But look, we've argued about this, you know, time and time again. And I mean, I'm stunned sometimes at the way we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with our PR. But there you go.
Paddy on the screen there says, and we've got Paddy, we've had some wonderful imagery drawn up by you recently. We had Crackers hosting Countdown on Friday night, which I've got to say, Paddy, some of the images we've had through from last one of Spurs, of course, Crackers with Nigella Bites. That's what you do get when you've got Crackers on here. We've got some wonderful analogies. So pleased to say you're going to have Richard Cracknell back with us tomorrow night for deadline day. I don't know what is coming our way, but Paddy, keep up the wonderful work. We love the imagery. We've had a couple of questions in on sponsors for the club, the naming rights. I promise you guys, before the evening is up, we will be covering that during this show. We've got, I say, different aspects that we're asking Cat and Martin in ascending order. So I promise you we're going to come on to that. And Paddy, your question there, you actually touched upon about the advisory panel. That's actually where we're going to go next. So this is to you, Martin. So I think the fan-led review was probably the most significant event of last year for the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. And we know that result has been a final report that could transform the English game. It's one that, of course, embeds the principle that fans can and should have a say in how our clubs are run. You've said that you've held positive initial talks with Spurs to discuss specific plans for fan engagement at the club and what those recommendations could mean for all of us in practice. Now, we know there was talks that were continuing throughout the new year. Can you give us an update as to where we are with it at the moment?
Yeah, so a lot of this comes into kind of old but vital because it's kind of, you know, governance and legal structures and all the rest of it. I would say to people that, I know it's a fair bit of reading, but have a look on our website, do a search for fan-led review. You can read the fan-led review that came out of a government initiative, which was contributed to by hundreds of supporters organisations across the country. And you can read what we put forward, what we think the solution should be at Spurs to get a supporter voice at board level. The club kind of came out, and Paddy referred to this club advisory panel, and they kind of came up with that idea fairly early on when they knew the review was happening. And we said that, you know, it's not going to go down well if you try and preempt what's in the review. Let's wait and see what's recommended, and let's wait and see if there's any legislation, and then let's have the conversation. So we've had a couple of chats now with the club about how that would work. I think they're calling it a club advisory panel. We would want to call it a supporter board because we think it should be more than just advisory. So one of the discussions that we're having is what would be the powers of that body. Another one is who would be on it, how would they be elected, who would they be accountable to. We're talking about things like getting the need to consult fans written into the articles of association of the club, right? Which is, again, kind of a big legal thing. But what that means is that when we're gone and the current owners have gone and everybody else is gone, but Spurs are still there, something is embedded, which means that you have to consult your supporters. One of the recommendations in the fan-led review was that there should be a golden share, which is held by a body like a supporters trust, a recognised body that meets certain standards. And we believe that we are the only body that meets those standards at this club. And the golden share would be exercised on things like the name of the club, the location of the stadium, the colour of the shirts, the competitions the club plays in, controversial one, after the events of this year as well. And the idea of that golden share was that unless there was an agreement from the supporters, as well as an agreement by the board of the business, that those decisions couldn't be made. Some of the people that I've been talking to about this, and some of the people, I try to answer people that write in, and I try to kind of, particularly if people are critical, they say, look, we don't agree with the direction you're taking. And one of the arguments is that this is all a waste of time. It's just going to be a token gesture. The reason that the fan-led review is different is because, one, you had government behind it, but also the Premier League's looked at it as well. Footballers recognised that there is going to be some kind of regulation, and it's recognised that there needs to be kind of legal changes made to embed some of this stuff. So it is absolutely not going to be the case that there's just going to be like a token fan on the board who gets outvoted by everybody else. Now, that the fan voice won't necessarily always get its own way either. And arguably, I would probably say the fans shouldn't always get their own way as well, but they have to be considered much more than they are. But the people that are saying this is going to be meaningless and a token gesture are wrong, because what's being looked at are changes to the rules of the game, to Premier League rules, and legal changes to make sure that is embedded in there. We're hoping to be able to get a bit more detail out, if you like, over the coming months. We're not going to sort of do a blow-by-blow negotiation. In the end, it will be something that has to be agreed by us, other fan organisations that the club is talking to, and the club, and then they will put something forward. What we'll do, when there is a recognisable framework, we'll say this is what has been drawn up so far. This is what it looks like in black and white. And we will ask our members, do you endorse that? Do you think that is the way to go forward? And we will get them to vote and to make the decision on that as well. So it's, this again, I kind of seem to say this on every show that, I got into this because I wanted to have a beer with my mates and watch some good football. And then you end up talking about financial instruments and governance structures and talking to lawyers and how can we embed this and how can we get these rules, and how much can we be involved as supporters in the business side of the club? How much should we? Where can you assert influence? It's all fairly complicated stuff. But if we get this right, and me and Kat have been doing this for nearly 10 years now, and we want to get this right because of the amount of effort that's gone into it. If we get this right and it's got right across the game, it absolutely will transform things as well. What it won't do, though, and just to get it out there now, it won't guarantee that every player we buy turns out to be a superstar, and it won't turn out that every transfer deal we make will get made as well. Because in the end, you've got to let the professionals get on with it. But what you want is to create a structure at a club, and I think that's really where the argument comes in about what's happened at Spurs. Is the focus on the right things? Yeah. Is the mentality there? Is the DNA? Right? This is about
it's direction. We ask for club direction. We all want direction.
Communication.
Just jump in really quickly and say, actually, I've been massively pleasantly surprised by the attitude and the approachability, is that the right word? But the openness of the club towards trying to work with us to build this structure, because they're conceding some power here. Now, they're kind of off guard of me. I wasn't actually expecting the negotiations to be as positive as they have been so far. So fingers crossed we can get to a place where we're happy to share a framework with our members, because this isn't just about the trust. Obviously, there will be some trust representation there, but there would be representation from right across the fan base. So it's a real opportunity to try and embed some genuine change, as Martin said, into the Articles of Association of the club as well. So it's not just a grace and favour relationship, and the tap can't just be turned off every time you have a minor row or disagree with them. But so far, so good. The club, including board input, have been extremely open to our suggestions, and I think we're getting into a good place.
Yeah, and we're not kidding ourselves that they're completely enthusiastic about all of it as well. I mean, some of the good comments, someone's just said, who would be chairman? It's a hard into nothing. Who would be on the board? It probably will be a hard into nothing, but we can't spend years saying fans need more of a say and then go, oh, actually, no, that would probably, that's too much that I'd work. We might get out of go at it if we do that. And I mean, look, we get out of go at now anyway. So
I must say, Martin,
you've got to be prepared to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. I must say, Martin, I'm extremely disappointed though that you can't promise me we're going to get a striker with 30 goals per season. I mean, that now, I'm really considering whether I'm going to go again now after that. You've said that.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd get the sell out in early, you know what I mean?
Well, massively disappointed that you can't promise me that on deadline day tomorrow. So I definitely will not be doing a deadline day show. I'll be switching off right now. And Lee McQueen, you're taking over, son.
Yeah, that's it. Quality stuff. Well, look, Kat, we actually touched upon it earlier, but 10 minutes ago when we were talking about kind of the price changes or hikes and that sort of stuff. But we've now seen good old Boris lift the restrictions in England, in terms of the COVID side of things. What's going to be the kind of the real positive around match day, Kat, for them COVID restrictions being lifted now?
Well, I'm pretty sure the club put an announcement out last week. I know the Premier League canvassed all of their clubs and canvassed supporters via the FSA to find out what we would like to happen after Boris basically declared COVID as being over. I think it was probably unsustainable for the Premier League or for any individual football club to still carry on asking for COVID passports or COVID certification, proof of a double vaccination or a negative test. When that wasn't an actual government requirement anymore. I mean, just as a small example, I live in London and I commute on the tube. TfL have still made mask wearing a condition of travel, but on Friday there were 12 of us in the carriage, 4 of us wearing masks. Yeah. So literally, once you tell people that it's not law, they're not going to do it. So the club and the Premier League have both confirmed that you won't need to show your COVID pass anymore. So that's gone. They have asked that we still have consideration for each other so that we wear masks in crowded areas. Can't see it happening, but they've asked that we continue to wash our hands. So providing they give us some soap in the dispensers, then we'll be able to do that too.
We need soap.
Exactly. So that's a plus, because I think it was a hassle for a lot of people. So, you won't be asked to jump through those hoops anymore, but you will be told, just don't be a dick, basically. And if you've got symptoms, please don't come to the match. There you go. I think the thing for us, we've always been driven by public health first, right the way through this pandemic. Personally, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more evidence that COVID was actually gone, but there you go. We are where we are. We need to make sure that the vulnerable fans, so those fans who took a sabbatical, for example, because they didn't feel that they were shielding, they didn't feel that they could go to the match, what's going to happen to them now? Similarly, those who share a household with extremely vulnerable people, what's going to happen to them? So we need to make sure that there's still provision there. We also need to establish what's going to happen with the operational parameters of things like ticket exchange and ticket share. So you might not have noticed, but we did lobby to make sure that there was a fairer operating policy around ticket exchange during COVID. So that ticket exchange is a resale platform. Traditionally, it will only open when a game sells out at primary source. What happened during COVID was, regardless of the sales numbers, so we'd already had a discussion earlier about maybe not every game selling out, the club agreed to open ticket exchange 48 hours ahead of a match to give people a chance to move their ticket on if they were isolating, if they suddenly couldn't go for whatever reason. That was a temporary measure whilst we're in COVID times. What is going to happen now at some point, I don't know when, but they're going to reverse back to the normal operating parameters on things like ticket exchange, which means it's totally at their discretion when it opens, which means it might not open for many games. Or it might, but it might not, because we don't know. If it's not sold out at primary source, they're not going to want to cannibalize their ticket inventory by giving us an opportunity to sell on. Similarly, share. They allow members to share with, family members, not just season ticket holders. I think that'll revert back to only being season ticket holders again. So there's a whole load of ticketing T's and C's and small print that we need to make sure that fans are not getting a bum deal on, basically. We have managed to get some guarantee, though, that if you do test positive on a PCR and you can't go to the game, get in touch with the ticket office, prove your positive PCR, and they will refund you. So they're not going to put that in writing because they don't want to be overflowing and they don't want to be taking the mickey. But we will work with the ticket office to try and make sure there are some provisions in place. So there's pros and cons, basically. I think it's a problem because the pandemic is still, the virus is still out here. It's still going to be catching it and having to isolate. That is an issue. If now it's not going to be as easy to try and move tickets on as it was for the last year or so. But there are obviously pros as well, that we don't have to mess around updating your wallet with your COVID pass or taking your LFT or whatever. I personally didn't have a hassle with it, but I know some people did. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant.
It's really complex. You don't think about day to day. You don't think about what you've just, and that's why it's so fascinating having yourself, Kat, and Martin on the show tonight, because there's so much detail that goes into just this, like what seemingly small subjects.
Yeah, I must say, before we go to Lee's question, just a couple of things. Crackers on the screen are saying, is it true Spurs are going to sign the German called hand sanitizer for the toilets? Listen, Crackers, well, the way this transfer window's going, as you know, and you're back on tomorrow, who knows where this is ended up. I wouldn't
is that what they call toilet humour?
We love it. We love it. Fantastic.
Talking toilets, I must give a shout out to I think it's Alex and James. I want to say they actually called me in the toilets to say this was the last home game, to say absolutely brilliant last run of Spurs. Love what you know all the guys are doing, etc. So a big shout out to them, because we're talking about toilets. I thought I'd bring you up right now.
It's nice to see we're making it in the toilets these days. Fantastic. Last run of Spurs in the toilet.
Still kicking off in the toilet.
Just one other thing, Kat, it's come up in the comments here, just in terms of, before we go for our next break for our listeners on audio, how often are you meeting with the trust now? I mean, I know before the pandemic, it seemed, fairly more regularly than maybe what it is now, and obviously it would have probably been in person, and maybe now via over Zoom or, again, virtual, it's Teams. Can you just give us an update on how often you meet with the trust and how that is done now, and whether it will go back to face at some point?
Meet with the club, I assume.
Sorry.
I mean, as a trust, yeah.
Meet with the trust every week. You can see I'm losing my mind. This transfer window is killing me. Meet with the club. Meet with Daniel and Donna and the board.
I think there's often a misconception that we just had set piece meetings and we potentially just spoke with them, once a quarter or so. We have day-to-day working relationships with senior staff members at the club across all of those fan touch points that we mentioned at the start. So whether it's safety and stewarding, or whether it is around catering, or whether it's around ticketing, or whether it's about anything to do with supporter services, we're in constant touch with the supporter liaison officer and with the head of ticketing and with the safety officers. So that's ongoing. Like, we had a ticketing meeting last week, I think, and a fan engagement the week before, and a fan engagement meeting last week, and another meeting with another board director last week on another subject that we'll talk about later. So that's ongoing, and they're all virtual now, which really helps, because I'm trying to fit around a full-time job. So it's, it was more difficult when you had to go to Lily White House and try and do a meeting in person. Set piece meetings with the board of Tottenham, they paused until we get the new structure in place. So as part of what Martin was talking about on the fan engagement and the fan supervisory board or supporter board, or whatever we're going to call it, we'd also quite like a memorandum of understanding and a reset on the relationship between the trust and the club as well. We still value in us having those meetings with their board, because we can take the questions in that other people can't. Because we're the only absolutely independent fan organisation at Tottenham. So we'd very much still like to move forward with those. But we're letting the supervisory board chats progress first, and then we'll work on where that leaves us as an organisation and our future relationship with the club.
Just for clear clarity on that, I mean, what's the time frame on that? Is it just a case? Do we have? Is it months?
I don't know how much I can say. I'm going to say it, and I'm really sorry if I'm breaking any confidences. I think the club would very much like to have the supervisory board, or advisory panel, as they're calling it, in place for the start of next season.
Okay, no problem at all. Blame me, Kat, for asking that question. If everyone gets told off, that's my fault.
I think it's fine to say that.
So, in order to do elections, or in order to get the whole structure set up, they would need to be bringing something public, I would have thought, certainly by late spring.
Right, okay.
It's not, we need to literally try and...
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, again, as you can appreciate, I think you guys, as you know, and you get this in comments, both positive and negative, I think you are the closest we get to having some form, some form of the direction of the football club. And now we've said this quite often on this show, that I think what just frustrates us sometimes is that lack of a voice, or that lack of somebody coming to tell us the direction. And we mentioned this in the last show, and I'll say it again, under Pochettino, and I know Lee, you agree with this massively, I know you loved Poch. You felt under Poch there was a clear direction and vision as to where this club was going. We were building the training ground, we were building the stadium. It's hence the reason why we wanted top four, to improve the squad, to again push on. I feel like since the loss of Poch, and again, I'm not being hypocritical, because I was one that said at the end of that with Pochettino, he needed to go because mentally and physically the Champions League drained him, it killed him essentially, and he had to go. But it does feel we've lost our way in terms of having somebody in place that can just tell us where we are going, what are we trying to do, how are we trying to compete, ultimately how are we going to be back to where we want to be, back in the Champions League, signing big players, acting like a big club. I think that's what all we want. So again, that's why we asked that question to you guys, because you're the closest we can to trying to get that information. But we are going to go for our next break of the show. For our listeners that are on audio, for our watching audience on YouTube, there's still nearly over 1,000 people watching us live. So again, thank you so much for your incredible support, not just for this show, for the many shows we've done over the course of the last few weeks. We know transfer windows can be draining. which is why, like I say, tonight it's lovely to have the likes of Kat and Martin on from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust to give us a bit of a break-up, because you will have a Last One on Spurs live transfer countdown show tomorrow where all the fun and games will happen. You'll end up seeing us either lose our rag or celebrate crazy. And someone's asked me, because I did say on the last show, would I apologise and would I say I'm an idiot if Spurs do make these signings? Well, I've still got 24 hours before I call myself an idiot. But if it's any consolation to you, I get called an idiot daily by my wife. So again, that will hopefully answer all your questions there.
I'm going to have WhatsApp group, listeners and viewers. See the WhatsApp group. What Stick Wickets.
I'm constantly apologising, but yeah, let's pass over to Lee McQueen to kickstart the second half of this show.
Yeah, for sure. So I think Kat or Martin, actually, or either of you, maybe coming over to Martin. I think both of you have said that you were surprised at the decision to postpone the North London derby just over 24 hours before kickoff. And that postponement also caused some significant issues around ticketing, for example. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe just a more of a personal view as fans as well, to be so disappointed that fixture, it is the fixture, isn't it, that was cancelled at such short notice?
Yeah, sorry,
Martin or Kat,
Martin, to tell me to take this question.
Yeah.
The beauty of technology whilst we're on technology. Love it.
I'm like multi-screening. You said the ticketing word, so that's why I ended it with me again. But I will let Martin share his considered thoughts on the way that Arsenal blatantly played that system to get that game postponed. But yes, so from a ticketing point of view, obviously, ticket exchange, ticket share were operational for that game. And we were overwhelmed, quite rightly, by fans who, for whatever reason, weren't able to make the original date of the North London derby, so had potentially sold their ticket on exchange, or they'd shared it to a family, friend, relative, because they couldn't make that particular time. And now they're left ticketless for the new game. And it's like the biggest game of the season, so it's not ideal. So the ticket meeting that we had with the club the week before last, we were very much stressing how they need to give people who have moved their tickets through text or share every opportunity to get another ticket for this game. So whether or not that is the share recipient, telling the club to send it back to the original gifter, there's possibly a technological way around that. So if you gave it to your brother or whatever, they can give it back to you, which you would think would be perfectly plausible. But also through ticket exchange, that there may be a priority sales window on exchange for people who'd sold, so that they can get another chance to buy. Or if the buyer of your ticket now can't make it, because the chances are it'll be a midweek game, which will restrict a lot of people's travel, then there may be an option for you to rebuy that back, like rebuy your original ticket. So we're working hard with the club, and they're looking at the technology available with their innovation partner, Ticketmaster, to try and work out how that can work. So they're all of those, again, complications that you don't necessarily...
Yeah, really complex, yeah.
Exactly, when a game is postponed. So that ticketing thing's there. The other big thing was transport issues. So I put out a tweet on my personal feed just asking if I could hear from people who'd travelled or had arranged to travel long distances to come to the game, because I'd been asked by the Premier League to pull together some evidence that not everybody going to a North London derby lived in North London. This is crazy, right? Why the hell would you even think that? In 2022,
that's insanity, isn't it?
Their take. It's a local match. There won't be anybody travelling. Of course there were. I mean, on my small feed, I had people who were coming from Canada, coming from the States, coming from Scandinavia, coming from Ireland, all with non-refundable travel or with non-refundable hotels. So that prompted a wider discussion. So I was lobbying at Premier League level. I feel very strongly there should be some kind of central fund there, that maybe a slice comes out of the massive broadcast money that they get, that sits there, and almost like an insurance claim. If this happens in the future, probably not through COVID, but it could be a weather cancellation or whatever, that you with maybe a small excess to stop people trying to claim back their zone 1 single on the tube. But blah, blah, you could go through a portal and you could claim to get your money back, basically. So I feel that
it's really strong.
So many of those fans were, some of them in 4 figures out of pocket because of that decision, and there's nowhere to claim that money back from. If their travel provider isn't going to refund them under their T's and C's, they're absolutely screwed, and that is totally wrong. So I don't know how far we'll get, because the Premier League doesn't really like to do central pots of money, but I feel that something needs to be done. another, bit.
You wait till the Premier League reschedule that football match for 48 hours or whatever, 2 days after another match, and then we've got 3 COVID cases in the side before that game, and then of course because of the rule change, we'll have to play it. It's just the whole thing was just madness. From a fan perspective, Kat and mine, just from a fan perspective, with that is the fixture, isn't it? The fixtures come out.
It's the one fixture. Yeah,
that fixture.
Yeah.
Do you think that they technically didn't do anything wrong that lot down the road, but at the end of the day, they played the system to absolute advantage, didn't they?
Well, there you go. Well, Paddy on the screen says I had 3 members from Limerick Spurs that lost roughly £500 each or euros each. There's one there, and again, we've got some questions, Kat, on ticketing. I hope you don't mind me asking you. Before I do, I know there's been a comment here from JS who says, please can you ask the guys about safe standing in the South Stand? How is that going? And will that be extended to the whole stand? So, Kat Martin, are you able to take that?
It's going well. Just to fill people in, so from the 1st of January at a selected number of grounds, of which ours is one, you're now allowed to stand and watch a football match at a top flight stadium. There's the front rows, the front blocks of the South Stand, and a block at the back at the top of the South Stand have been designated as areas where people can stand during the game, and they've got the rail seating in, so the rail kind of comes up to about your midriff, and also the whole of the away section has got rail seating as well. We all know that away fans tend to stand anyway, but the idea is that it's a safer environment now. The feedback from the club that we've had is that there's far less arguing about people getting told to sit down or people getting asked to stand up, because people are in the areas and they know that those things are going on. There seems to be that the club offered people a chance to move around, particularly when the new area in the top of the South Stand was designated, because people may have bought tickets there not knowing that most people would be standing around them, and they've tried to move as many people around as they can, but that all seems to have settled down. It seems to be going really well. It seems to be going well at the other clubs as well, despite the efforts of the UK police, football police in Leeds, to say it's going to lead to all kinds of chaos and confusion and everything else. Is it ever going to be all through the South Stand? No. There's no way that they would ever get through the safety regulations of 17,000 seater single tier stands to be completely safe standing. And again, it's not. People talked about, we've talked about this before on the show, people talked about a return to the terraces, that this isn't a return to anything. This is a new thing. It isn't like those days in the 70s that, 80s that I can remember as well. It's a different experience, but it's something that the fan movement argued for a long time. And again, to give our club the credit, we went, it was about 7 or 8 years ago, wasn't it, Kat, when Paul Head, who used to be in our board, went and kind of gave them a presentation and said, look, we think you should think about this. And when they were planning a new stadium, they planned the areas in so that if the legislation changed, that they could offer standing as well. It's something that we've argued is just common sense, and it's safer as well, having that kind of rail seating in there as well. So it's a good thing. It's going well. I'm sorry, it won't ever be right the way through the South Stand.
Yep. No, absolutely. As Stuart on the screen, it says my season ticket is in South, but standing stops a few rows in front of my seat. If they stand, we have to stand anyway. So again, good point there.
The thing, and that's true. And look, we've said this before that you can't. There's sometimes, and we get accused of this as well. That you want to rule for everything. You can't have a rule and a bit of legislation for every single thing that's going on. And in the end, at some stages, some game, it might be that you're in an area where you're standing up and you want to stand up, but somebody is behind you who can't move, who can't stand up. And if they say, look, can you sit down because I can't see the game? We had this at Chelsea, didn't we, the other week, that there was somebody with from a kid, and you couldn't see either, Kat, there's some kind of free tickets. So you just kind of shuffle around a little bit and so that you can see the game. And that's what always used to happen as well. So, sometimes just a little bit of respect for each other and common sense, and we can all make sure we see the game,
Absolutely. No, totally agree with you. Right. Martin, this one's over to you. So I know we're going back a bit now, so apologies for this. I think we had our last catch up with you in October. So we're now having to retrace some steps that obviously have happened before this point. So we know the club, obviously they released their audited financial statements on the 23rd of November. I think, of course, Lee, around that time we had gentleman we had at the time on our show that very kind of gave us a financial breakdown. But we did a show, obviously, of course, on Tottenham's finances. So we're not going to touch upon Kieran Maguire, who's fantastic for us, gave us a really good breakdown at the time. And again, just to go back on that, I mean, I know you guys said in one of your recent statements that it was noticeable that the chairman's statement accompanying the figures indicated that the club were making more of an effort to present and contextualise the accounts. Do you have a view on the overall financial results, Martin, from the date they were released, 23rd November?
Yeah, we do. And actually, at some stage in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a fairly major piece of work, which has been led by one of our board members, Michael Green, who works in corporate finance, who's been really looking through the accounts and is trying to kind of go further on that thing where we'd said to the club, you know, the accounts that you put out don't really give very much away. And again, it's about communicating and trying to be transparent with the fans and, of course, not giving your commercial secrets away, but you could do a lot more rather than put out the barest minimum. They did a little bit more. We think that they could have done a bit more. So what we've tried to do is almost a kind of Swiss ramble, kind of Kieran Maguire deep dive examination into what do the figures mean. There's a guy called Henry Ellis who, if he's approved at our AGM in about a month's time, will be coming onto the board, who's also an accountant who specialises in the property area. And one of the things we're going to be looking at and trying to put out and explain to people is what the relationship is between the property side of what ENIC is doing and the football side as well. And, you know, there's a lot of supposition, there's a lot of statements being made about that. And what we're interested, first of all, is to find out as many facts as possible. So that's going to be something that's coming out on our website over the next couple of weeks. I mean, the general opinion is, and I think people know it, as a business, it's run pretty well. Yes, there's a lot of debt, but the way that they structured that debt is probably the least damaging way that they could structure that debt. They don't actually take money out of the club in dividends like the Glazers do at Manchester United. The big issue is, does the owner put any money in? The answer is no, and I don't think he ever will. So again, that's a question. That's something that, you know, people have an opinion on. But you know, as a business, we are in pretty good shape. Is the balance between the business side, the business offshoots, and the football side right? I think we'd probably say it isn't really. We'd like to see a little bit of rebalancing on that. But if you're going to make the criticisms and you're going to try and push for change on the kind of business side, you've got to get your facts right, first of all. So that's what we're trying to do with this piece of work that Michael's done. And again, you know, that isn't a kind of short answer that you can give at a rally, but it's an answer that might get us somewhere and get us some information, and then people can make their own decisions. So do look out for that. I don't think it's news. You know, this is the argument that all Spurs fans have over a point, isn't it? That, you know, what's the balance between the business side and the football side? And we've always said that, yes, football is a business now, but it is a sport at the heart. That's what we're about. We want to be about entertainment and about winning trophies in the end and about success for the football team on the pitch. The club would say the same thing. So then we argue about, okay, are we doing that and what's the balance?
Yep. Yeah. Martin, just before we hand back over to Lee, and because we've got one more question that's coming from Gavin Spurs on the financials, and again, there's been a comment that's come up a lot in the chat tonight about the stadium sponsors. So Gavin asked the question, Gavin Spurs, considering how important it is for the finance of the debt and investing in the squad, why have Spurs still not, in brackets, 3 years after the opening of that new stadium, got a stadium sponsor? Has the club given any updates on this? And he also says, great job, by the way. You are very appreciated, both of you and the board of the trust members, in brackets, forget the idiots.
Thank you. The word in the business is that we haven't got naming rights because we're asking too much for them. So it's that old really basic business thing, you know, what is this worth? It's worth as much as someone's prepared to pay for it, and we're asking too much. Now, again, that's not the official answer from the club, and I can't prove that, and nor can anybody else. But enough people that I've spoken to around the football business seem to think that that's the case. The obvious thing that then comes up, if you think, okay, you know, I'm a business genius, so is not signing something for 3 years and having nothing better than signing something for less than I'd ideally want, but having it for 3 years? It's difficult to understand how we could not be losing out on an opportunity to have made some more money by not selling those naming rights earlier. But then the other side of this is that I actually quite like having a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I still call it White Hart Lane anyway, if we sign a naming rights deal, I guarantee our postbox will be full of people protesting that we're now the Amazon Stadium or the Kentucky Fried Chicken Arena or whatever it is, and that's it. And I think that, but because somebody isn't going to say like, here's 10 million quid a year and just carry on calling it the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. There's also a view that, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium being known around the world for things like, the Joshua fight, for example, as well. That is a pretty good bit of profile building as well, and I'm sure that is, something that hasn't got unthought of in the club boardroom as well. But yes, to answer the question, it does seem odd. It seems like we're losing out that we haven't got that deal. But as far as we can tell, it's because they're asking for too much, and they don't think the right deal has been there as well. When we've asked them specifically, they've just said the right deal hasn't emerged.
Right, okay. Listen, I appreciate that update. Dave on the screen there says a credit to you both. Rick, if the ball won't come on the pod, can't we have these guys on more regularly? It's a great listen. I think if you've been watching our channel, when we've had Cat and Martin on, I want to say the last 3-4 years, I mean, our relationship goes back quite some way now. And listen, of course, we always try and keep inundating with Cat and Martin. We love to bring them on once every couple of months. I think the key, obviously, is that we want to bring these guys on when there's information to tell us. And again, if we were to bring these guys on every week, we might not get the general updates we get now. So listen, we love having Cat and Martin on. Absolutely, it's great to have the trust on. It gives us an insight into what's going on in and around the club. It gives, obviously, these guys hopefully the opportunity to update us. And listen, we're always indebted to having these guys on, so absolutely love it. And we're looking forward to having them on much more often as well. So lots of love for you.
That's nice. Guys. I think Dave needs to get out more, though. Sorry, I'm distracting again, but if this rumour that I'm seeing about Ousmane Dembele being on his way to sign for Spurs is true, then that is enormous news, isn't it? I'm seeing this in the comments.
I must say, I would urge on the side of caution. There's now reports.
I've done that thing that we all hate, haven't I?
You've mentioned a player. Yeah. There's that thing that, well, we understand that he could potentially now, there's rumours tonight, again, could be on his way to Chelsea. I'm sure we can somehow find out.
Maybe
we haven't got the stadium naming rights because we're now trying to approach Ousmane Dembele to pay off those £400,000 a week wages. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, who knows? The beauty of a transfer window. We will shall see on deadline day. I'm going to hand back over to the very capable Lee McQueen. Over to you, Lee.
For sure. So the Tottenham Hotspur Trust is the first supporters trust to back the call for a Hillsborough law. The law would impose a duty on all public officials to be truthful at inquiries into public tragedies and would give the families affected access to adequate resources to support their pursuit of justice. You've also asked Tottenham Hotspur FC to join Liverpool FC, Everton FC, and obviously Brighton Hove Albion as well in backing calls for the new law to be established and await the club's response. How proud are you to be the first to back this campaign, Martin?
We're really proud, and it's important. And a lot of people watching this will know this, and a lot won't. But there's a deeper connection as well, because one of the 97 who died as a result of Hillsborough was a Spurs fan called Colin Sefton, who drove his Liverpool supporting friends to the game and died on that terrace as well. A lot of our fans had been on the same terrace in 1981 at the semi-final replay. Sorry, it wasn't the replay. It was the first game against Wolves in the FA Cup, and had experienced similar problems. And I think they all said, we all thought that could have been us. And when one of the Hillsborough inquiries came up, a lot of Spurs fans gave evidence to that, and it helped secure a modicum of justice. So the Hillsborough Law campaign is not just going to apply to football, but I think everyone's now familiar with the disgraceful treatment that the British establishment meted out to the families of the dead at Hillsborough, and that still happened around things like Grenfell and whatever. So this law is something, as you said, that imposes a duty on all public officials to be truthful at inquiries, and it also gives families that are trying to pursue justice a bit of help. And it's a kind of slightly outside football thing, but it's something that we thought it was important because of the connection for football for us to do. Obviously, Spirit of Shankly, the Liverpool Supporters Union, were the first trust really to back it, and it's right that they did that. And so outside of Liverpool, we've become the first trust to join in, partly for the reasons I said, and partly because we think it's the right thing. I think it's fantastic that Liverpool, Everton, and Brighton are also pushing it. Football clubs often say we don't really want to get involved in anything political, but again, this call has got cross-party support as well. I think people see it as the right thing, so that's why we've asked our board if they join those other three clubs and put their name to it. But it's sad that it has to be done, because I can't imagine what those people have been through. We were proud to do it.
Yeah, no, fantastic work. Absolutely fantastic work. No, spot on. Right, again, Martin, I'm going to stick with you because among the many disappointments this season, we are over halfway through. There's been some disappointments. Was Spurs, again, you may be in favour or maybe not, Spurs going out of the Europa Conference League. Many were celebrating. I all know it's through the streets, but again, it's a competition that definitely divided the opinion of Spurs being in it. But the fact that I know against Rennes in November was Spurs, you guys, THST, were working with both the Tottenham Food Bank and Spurs in general for months to identify a game that could be dedicated to promoting the Food Bank texting service. Is there going to be an alternative initiative for this, Martin?
We don't know yet. I mean, it was a pity that the game was called off for many reasons, but obviously, that kind of fundraiser, it would have given it a lot more publicity. I think there's a conversation going on about whether the shirts, which because they weren't used and have got the kind of food bank campaign stitched into them, I think below the badge, they're going to be collector's items. And can we get those auctioned off to raise money for the food bank? But at the moment, there aren't any plans for another game. Can I quickly switch to something? Because you
may say whatever you want. Please do.
I've seen this in the comments, right? Whoever Nav Star P is, right? From all the THST reports I've read over the years, especially when times have been difficult, they've never taken Levy and the board to task for whatever reason, probably out of fear of privileges. We can disagree about a lot of things, but I am pissed off with the number of times I'm seeing on social media that we're on the take, right? Either you prove that or you shut it, right? And if I get told I'm being too aggressive about that, then I am, because you're not going to sit there and slander people who are trying to do their best for what goes on. You might disagree, but, we've never taken the board to task. We called for them to resign over the ESL, and we got told by some fans that we've taken too hard a line, right? So prove what you're saying, right? I've taken nothing, nor has any other member of the trust board at any stage in the job, right? Do not keep spreading this slander that we're on the take. I'm not having it. I'm sorry.
Well said.
I have to say, Martin, I'm quite glad.
Behind the name on social media and putting this stuff out, prove it or withdraw it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Listen, there's so much love for you in the comments here. And again, part of me, Martin, I'm glad that has come up because it gives you the opportunity to answer that kind of question. Sure. Because the problem we've seen with social media, and I'm not afraid to say this, you have people that hide behind a profile picture, not even of themselves, of an animation or something like that, and they feel they've got the right then to abuse people. They would, do you always be laughing about social? They would never ever come up to you in the street or say anything. It does make me laugh over the years when I personally have received the odd one or two, but in the street, they wouldn't say a word to you, and they think they can just hide behind. What happened
now, because I've come back on that, is that that's us being arrogant or patronising and not listening to anybody. I'm listening, and I'm telling you to put up or shut up.
Yep. No, but listen again. The comments here reflect.
Stick that on your social media feed.
Listen, the comments. The comments here reflect, like I say, Martin, everyone's thoughts, and I can tell you, 99.99% of the people know that you and Kat do everything you can to make this club a better place for all of us as supporters, as fans. Again, I have to say this point, as I said during the show at the start of it and in the middle of it. The work Kat and Martin do is voluntary. They both have full-time opportunities, full-time jobs. I just can't get over the just people just can't quite understand that or comprehend that. It just baffles me. But again, listen,
it's different values, Rick. It's different values. At the end of the day, personal values. Some people don't understand it because it's not in their personal values. They would never do it. They would never give their own time up to go and support or to drive something that they're passionate about. Kat and Martin and everyone else at the trust actually does as well. So look, well said. And at the end of the day, go on.
I was going to say, just to try and get something positive out of that, I know that something we were possibly going to talk about a bit earlier, if I can try and take back that where we've had a bit of a disagreement with some of our own, members and supporters as well about a particular stance we've taken around concessionary pricing. But I know that Kat wanted to mention a little bit about that we raised a bit of a fuss about the club withdrawing concessionary pricing in certain games. But I'm not trying to take over the chair of the show, but I know it's a
no. Please go for it. No, go for it. Listen, guys, the show.
Why are we doing that?
The show is here for you. The show is here. Go for it. Please do. Go for it.
Yeah. So basically, for a few of the cup games, so Morecambe and Chelsea and West Ham, the club removed all senior and young adult pricing bands. And so they honoured the juniors, so the under 18s, but everything else was at a full adult pricing. So we had a discussion with them. It was a board decision to do this. They felt that those tickets were already discounted sufficiently without having to offer further concessions. And obviously we have a major problem with that. So all across the leisure industry, concessions are offered to people who are, young or old, a recognition that those that are too young to work or those that are too old to work generally have like less disposable income than adults who are in employment. And it's a basic recognition that those demographics can't always afford full price. And it's a way of ensuring that they're not discriminated against. And we'd actually made some really good headway with Spurs on the concession issue. So probably around 2013, 2014, we lobbied for them to increase the junior category to under 18. It had traditionally been under 16. So once you turn 17, you're paying a full adult price, which is a lot of money for the bank of mum and dad, as it normally ended up being. So we got them to raise that to 18. And then just a couple of years ago, we also got them to introduce a young adult category for 18 to 21-year-olds. So a reflection that you'd either be in full-time education or your salary would be a lot lower because you were at the start of your career journey. So it was traditionally like 50% discount for seniors and a 25% discount for the young adults. So that was great work by Tottenham, and we really applauded that. So to see the young adult category and the senior concessions just vanishing from their cup offering was really disappointing. So, Premier League rules state that you have to offer a junior band, but they don't say anything about the senior or a young adult. So, you can play fast and loose again here. And we've noticed, especially since the £30 away price cap, a lot of other clubs have now removed a senior category totally. So if you're OAP and you're going to an away game, you're paying the full £30. There is no discount, which isn't in the spirit of the cap. So I just want to make an appeal that if you're a young adult, so you're aged 18 to 21, or if you're a senior, so you're over 65, please get in touch with us, because we don't intend to let this drop. We want to challenge it from both a moral and a commercial standpoint. Having a broad understanding of the figures, the amount of money that it would cost the club to reintroduce those concessions on cup tickets that are like 20 quid, 25 quid full price. You're talking a tenner per person. There aren't that many people in those brackets. It's the little things like that that drive the disconnect. And when we were talking about people being fed up and not feeling that there was a connection between the club, it's things like that. And then charging 60 quid for the Villa game last season, which was the only game where we had fans in, and we were by far out of kilter with the entire division. It was meant to be a celebration and a thank you that the fans had put up with the whole season with behind closed doors matches, and they go and charge 60 quid. It's things like that that leave a sour taste. And then people run out. So I just wanted to appeal to any concessions out there to get in touch with us, because we really want to fight your corner, but we need to know how it's affecting you.
That Villa game, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be wrong, but that was the first time the pubs were open back up, wasn't it? That game.
Yeah.
And there's 8 season ticket holders that normally go all together in my group, and we all met for the pub at the pub beforehand to. Like was going to be a big thing, and then the prices came out like it was a week before, whatever it was, and we were like, we'll just go and watch it in the pub. Like we won't even bother going. And like that is, I don't mind saying that and sharing that view, because some people say, oh, you should go to every game if you're a season ticket holder, but we were like, out of principle, you're taking the piss. 60 quid.
Yeah. We watched it in the Antwerp.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Watched it. We didn't go and do it either as well.
Right. I just want to clarify that the senior concessions and the young adult concessions are still in place for league games. This is a cup decision. So to clarify, because
although there's that long running argument we've got with them, because you can only get concessions in certain parts of the ground, and our argument is that you should get a concession based on your age, not where you sit. Yeah. So again, we've got season ticket holders who sit in their seat with their families or their mates in the place where they've watched the team for a long time. And, some of them have kind of, if they used to watch from near the halfway line at White Hart Lane, they've got a season ticket in that position at the new stadium. You can't get a concession in that seat. So they would have to move somewhere else or carry on paying for twice. And we just think it's wrong.
Yeah.
Kat, can I ask you, before I go back over to... Did you want to come in there, Kat? Lee,
no.
Sure. Kat, we've had a couple. My mistake for money. We had a couple more ticketing questions coming in. We're back on the topic. Adam Booth firstly asked: is there anything been done to try and prevent people selling away tickets to harvest points?
Okay, so yeah, really hot topic, and fully appreciate the frustration when the newer season ticket holders, who it tends to be, are trying to get on that points ladder, and you're casually seeing people just flogging their tickets across social media. It really pisses us off, and it really annoys everybody. So I fully do understand that. And we worked with the club to develop a sanctions and banning policy that actually came into play just before the pandemic hit. So it would have been early 2020. And it's in place now. So if you pass on or sell on an away ticket for face value or under, and you're caught, it's an immediate 50% deduction in loyalty points. So they'll take half your points off you as a punishment for a first offence. And then it will roll into like an indefinite ban if you do it again. So yes, and they have taken the points off people, because we've had people contact us saying, can we represent them? And it's like, not really, because you did this, and we've got to be true to the newer season ticket holders who are playing by the rules. And the away allocation, the system, the way of doing that at Tottenham is actually one of the fairest across the division if people play fair. But when people start taking the mickey, then obviously it's other people who lose out. So yes, that is in place. So that's there. Also, and this is probably more interesting news, you'll be aware that we moved to digital ticketing for our home games this season, and that will obviously stay in place. So everything's now in your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet or whatever. We will be trialing away tickets, digital away tickets next season at selected venues. So they all need to be on the same system. There needs to be the tech in place. But the idea is sooner rather than later, all your away tickets are going to be digital as well. And bear in mind, there is no official resale or pass on for away tickets. So it's coming to your phone, and you're going to have to be the person who goes into the ground. And I think that will massively help, because it will be virtually impossible to then try and pass your ticket on. So that's what we're going to try and get to. Fully understand that there has been a culture for many, many decades now of taking, your kid, your brother, your daughter, whatever, to games, and that's just been the way that the fan base has grown. But we're in a situation now where we have over 40,000 season ticket holders, and it is blatantly unfair if some people are harvesting points, and we know they're doing it. So nobody wants to be a grass, but if you see anything on a forum or on social media, you are perfectly entitled to screen grab it and send it to the ticket office. They will investigate, and if they can identify who that person is, they will take 50% of their points off them for a free pass on or an under face value sale.
Before we go back after leave, just one more, Kat. This is from Ben Hodson at Ben88 Spurs. He says, can the away tickets allocation be looked at? My son, who got his season ticket this year, has no chance of ever getting a ticket, as he can barely build his points up. 20 to 25% should go to a ballot, in his opinion. Have you got any view on that at all?
I mean, look, we've looked at that. We ran surveys on it. That actually wasn't a massively popular option, because obviously how do you then turn around to the 25% of people who have genuinely built their points up and go, actually, you know what now, guys, you're not going to get a ticket for this game. Sorry, we're just going to let someone else who's at the back of the queue come in.
And it's even more difficult to plan ahead, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
If you because you've got that random nature. So.
Totally. Yeah. I think if everybody played by the rules, then he'd be able to get his points, because it is a minority of people who will farm their tickets out for every game and then just pick and choose the ones that they want to go to that are causing the issues. And that's the block there. But with the best win in the world, once you've got 40,000 season ticket holders and an average 3,000 away allocation, there's going to be 37,000 people who are disappointed at every game. So you are just never going to please everybody. You can build your points up from home games though. So obviously you get top tips, upgrade to a gold membership. It's 40 points for renewal as opposed to like 25 for silver or whatever. So 40 points to renew a gold. I think that's right, isn't it, Martin? 40?
Yeah, it's 40 points, yeah.
You get that every year. And then all of your home cup games, we make sure that you have points allocated. And we've also made sure the points are only allocated after a turnstile scan, so that you can't just be buying and not turning up, right? So you can pick up quite a few points. There were 9 points for the Europa Conference League games, and there would be 3 more if we hadn't had that match cancelled. There are 2 for Brighton, I think, this coming Saturday. So you can pick up quite a few throughout the season by going to home games solely. And then FA Cup games are normally good ones to try and get away tickets for, because we have 15% allocation there. So you get more tickets.
Kieran's just asking, how do you get gold? Just ask.
In your ticketing account on the website, you can upgrade at the start of a season, I think it is. So email me and I'll tell you how to do it. It's probably on Ask Spurs if you look at Ask Spurs.
There you go. Lots of love for you, Cap.
Reassure you, Lee, because I know you talked about this earlier about not being able to get as well. That it is possible. I know people think, you know, this it looks impossible, but there is a little bit of natural wastage is like a horrible term, but there's a little bit of falling away. So we do know of individuals who first got their season tickets at Wembley who are just now, because they've done things like got the gold membership, the automatic cup scheme, gone to some of the less popular kind of cup games in the early rounds at home, are just coming on to the point now where for some of the away games with the slightly larger allocations, they're getting tickets. You know, stuff like Watford, which is one of the smallest allocations and also popular because it's kind of close. You know, it's in a big sort of, you know, Tottenham area, if you like. They're going to be really difficult. And that Bournemouth was always a bugger to get as well. But it is possible to do that. So keep applying, Lee, and everybody else that's doing that. It is possible to do that. But I know it's difficult because those of us that have built up the points and are going, people say, well, it's all right for you. I always see you at an away game, you know.
And I know this is wild, but a really good way to pick up points this season was going to the European aways because everybody who applied got a ticket and it was 5 points every time. I appreciate we were in a pandemic and there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
I know you couldn't make it up.
You would have got points.
You couldn't make it up, right? So I applied to go to Mura away, and I would have got a ticket, but the Mura Stadium, because it weren't at Mura Stadium, was it? It was at the other stadium.
It was relocated, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was relocated, and because of COVID, they halved 50% of the ticket allocation. You could not make this up. So I missed out on that one as well. But again, a fascinating insight, because generally I didn't know 3 or 4 of them points that you both just talked about. That's really going to help the fans understand where that is. I mean, I'm going to, I can't wait actually. It feels like we had a football match for about 3 months. I can't wait. I'm going on Saturday. The only downside for Saturday is obviously it's such a 8 o'clock the timing of that. Yeah. But can't wait for Saturday. Absolutely loving it. And so again, the bonus of that is you get a couple of loyalty points, as you said, and so on and so forth.
You're definitely going on Saturday, though, then, Lee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right, so have you had to give up your stint on the Masked Singer then? Because it's the same time. Isn't it?
Shh, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Don't break his cover. Right, Kat, I'm so sorry. There's been 2 other questions that have come in really on ticketing. Can we just quickly squeeze these in? Do you mind very quickly? We just squeeze these in. So Grant THFC on the screen says, do you know the points marker it is once you're eligible for away tickets when you're a One Hotspur member?
I don't understand the question, Granty.
Okay, we'll ask him to
type it again. Then I can answer it for you. But what the points marker? Do you know what that means, Martin?
Is it how is there is like a cut off for point? It's a different cut off point for each game depending on how many tickets are available.
It is, but One Hotspur members.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We'll come back to that.
Yes. Sorry, we're not trying to be invasive. Just
that's fine.
Understand, so.
Let's see if he sends that back through. And then one other one there. Will there ever be a chance to get an away ticket again, a platinum season ticket?
I wouldn't Charlie there. So. It's very much a legacy issue now. So I think there are easily under 200 that are left, and they all of that because they had that in place way before the £30 price cap. What basically happened there was the minute the PL announced that they were bringing in the £30 price cap, obviously that made an away season ticket extremely affordable. And so you had people who were on like 50 loyalty points applying for an away season ticket, which would basically block all of the rest of the people who had way more loyalty points than them getting a ticket. So both us and the club paused the platinum system. Basically, I think we had a limit of about 500, but that would have put 500 people right at the top of the points table, and it would have been basically a free pass, like you play Monopoly, like literally go to the top of the table. And because
I think a lot of them would have been touts as well.
And a lot of them would have been touts. So that's got paused, because in the old days you've been paying like 60 odd quid to go to Arsenal, 50 odd quid to go to Chelsea. It was really bloody expensive.
Chelsea, wasn't it?
No, it was Chelsea. Arsenal was the most expensive, but it was a lot of money, and so the 30 made it far more reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Grant has sent back through. He's saying, I have 150 points so far. I think what he's referring to, he's got 150 so far. I think he wants to know when is he at a point where he can start applying for away fixtures, essentially.
when he takes out a season ticket, and I really don't mean to sound like I'm being obtuse about this, but we have 40,000 season ticket holders. So every single one of those would not want to go to a game in order to allow any one Hotspur members to go, because every season ticket holder sits above all of the one Hotspur members in ticketing terms. So a one Hotspur member on 200 points would come below a season ticket holder on 1 point.
Right. Okay.
Right. Because if you're a season ticket holder, you've made that financial commitment to the club.
Yeah.
So you're in the bracket up here. And so a one Hotspur member with 600 points would still sit below a season ticket holder on 1 point. So you'd have to have the 40,000 season ticket holders not wanting to go to an away game, or a significant proportion of them not wanting to go to an away game, for it to ever get to members. So the old days of it going to general sale and members at an away game are virtually over.
Yeah.
So my advice, if Granty wants to go to away games, is to take out a season ticket when they offer you one, and then work your points up from there. Sorry.
There you go. There you go. Well, he's happy. Great job, guys. Thank you. Keep calling you Kath, but it is Kath.
Just before we go back over to Rick to close the show, I just want to. I've got to mention a couple of other things. And Martin, you mentioned earlier where you watched the Villa game back in the Antwerp Arms. And I've got a little bit of an announcement for you. So some massive dates for your diaries at 7 p.m. on Thursday, the 21st of April, 2022. Make sure you get all of that down. So that's Thursday, the 21st of April at the Antwerp Arms. After 2 years of the pandemic-imposed absence, THST pub quiz is back. It is back in the mixer, raising money for local mental health charity Studio 306 Collective. How great will it be to have the THST quiz again after that imposed break? Are you excited about it, Martin, Kat? And the address, if you don't know where the Antwerp Arms is, it's N1788AS. Sorry, we put them in the comments. People are up for it, right? You're buzzing to have that back.
It's going to be great to be able to start doing stuff like that again, and just to start meeting people. Although the one bit of trepidation is that the arguments over whether you've correctly allocated the scores and whether that really was the answer to the question are worse than the arguments about the transfer window. I'll tell you that. So it's a lot of work. But it'll be great to get people together again, and also just to raise some money for really good cause for our local charity, Studio 306 Collective.
Absolutely. Can I ask you though, guys? There's about 800, 900 people watching this live at the moment. Has the Antwerp Arms got facilities for that amount of people if they all turn up?
It might be a bit pushed on. I think you might not actually want to be in an 800 strong Antwerp Arms, really, especially with it's BA2 is the latest variant, isn't it, as well? So
exactly. I mean,
FFP2 masks on.
Yeah, Lee there shares the address, the postcode there for you again. So, Antwerp Arms N178AS for our listeners that are on audio. Is that a ticket? That'll be a ticket event, though, guys, won't it? You'll be able to buy tickets in advance. Will you always get a turn up at the door policy?
Kev Fitzgerald's sorting that out for us, isn't he, on our board with Rachel Martin? They're doing that. So we'll get some information out. We'll probably either drive people. We won't make you pay for tickets, I wouldn't have thought. I can't remember how we do it, to be honest. Maybe we do. Maybe it's a donation to the charity.
Okay.
But you can either go in as an individual or you can go in as a team. But it's far too complex for me to try and sort out. I'll just...
No problem at all. Well, I'm just conscious for Kev's sake. He's not got 900 people at the door waiting to come in. Poor Kev might need to get might lay down after that event for him. You might be doing that quiz for about till the next week. I mean, Jason knows about these shows doing 2 hours. That might be about a 4-hour quiz. So I'm sure Jason will steer him off going to that one. Finally, Kat, listen, you guys have been amazing. You're giving us 2 hours of your time. And as I said at the top of the show, middle of the show and throughout, these guys, as I've said, voluntary, they do it for the love of Tottenham, they do it for wanting to make the experience better. And as Craig says there on the screen there, it's been a really fantastic show, hugely informative. A massive thanks to you guys for all the work you do. Thanks, Craig, for all the support. Really appreciate it. I'm sure like Lee as well. Nikki saying there, 900 people queuing. The THST forum, Kat, is open to full and life members of the trust, and it provides an opportunity to discuss the work of what the trust is doing. Can you tell our listeners a bit more about that, and also remind us, of course, of what becoming a member entitles you to, and of course how you can finally join the trust?
Yeah, of course. So a couple of years ago now, we had to take the decision to go transmit only on social media. So if any of your viewers, listeners, whatever you call them, have tried to ask us questions on social media and we've ignored you. We haven't deliberately ignored you. We just couldn't cope with the volume. We've got nearly 60,000 followers now, and the questions, particularly over things like the Champions League final or the move to the new stadium, I do most of the tweeting, and I was answering, I'm not joking, about 150 tweets an hour, and alongside a full-time job, and just couldn't keep up with it. So basically, apologies. If you need to get hold of us, you can always get hold of us on our email address, which is info@THSTofficial.com, and we'll answer every single email that we get. Or if you're a full member or a life member, you can access our forum. You can register on our website, which is www.THSTofficial.com. And that's just kind of an online community, obviously, as a forum is, where we'll discuss all the major topics of the day. So you can get involved, and board members drop in, and we'll try and answer the various questions that you have. It's also a very good barometer for us of fan feeling, so we'll know what the major issues are and what the major concerns are, of mainly off-field stuff, obviously. So that's that. How you can sign up, again, go to our website, thstofficial.com, and it's /membership. So one of the tabs across the top is membership. Click on there. That shows you the membership options. You can join for free for associate membership. If you're an adult, it's £10 a year for full membership. And if you're a senior, it's a £5. Juniors are completely free. So it's even better than the club. We don't charge anything for kids. So and all of the benefits are listed on that page as well. So the more of you that we can say that we represent, the stronger our voices, and it's just massively important at this moment in time that we really reinforce what a good, invigorated, vibrant, active supporter organisation can achieve. And we've had some really big achievements over the last 12 months where fans came together. So reversing the ESL, for example, we caused that to collapse in 48 hours.
Yep. Certainly.
Everybody collectively coming together across the football family. That's absolutely fantastic. After 30 years of campaigning, we've now got Say Standing Back, brilliant, and we forced a fan-led review. So hopefully we'll manage to embed supporter voices right at the very heart of our club. So a really exciting time for the supporter movement, a really important time to be involved. We'd love more of you to be involved. We've got our AGM on the 16th of February. As Martin said, we've got 3 new people who are standing for election to the board, and a couple of our old handers who are standing down. So a quick thank you to Pete Hayne and Kev Fitzgerald, who are stepping off the board after 5 years and 7 years. They've been amazing, and they've given so much of their time for nothing, I will say.
Just to be that clear,
Exactly. And so just get involved. We'd love to. We'd be proud to say that we represented more of you.
Yeah, again, listen, so much love. Absolutely.
Well, the passion from Kat and Martin is just it's infectious. It's so awesome.
Absolutely.
The amount of love that we've had on this
tonight.
show.
Look at the comments coming in here. Look, that on there, Kat. Sean, I can listen to all night, Kat. Seriously, perhaps he needs to lend his phone to you. Imagine you'd be a lot better in negotiations. Do you know what? I care to agree. That's where we're going wrong in this chat. So let's not give Kat the bloody phone. And also, can we get the number for that kitchen again?
I
just want to add, just quickly add as well, right? We've got over 800 people watching right now. It takes 1 second to press the like button. If you genuinely like what you've seen tonight, press the like button. Get involved and press the like button. We love what we're doing for our viewers, for our listeners, for the listeners in audio as well. Please, reach out to us. Come and see me in the stadium as well. I'm in block 252 most match days at home. Sometimes I move around a little bit, but that is where my season ticket is as well. Press the like button right now. Let's get us up to over 800 likes. We've got 800 people watching. Everyone press the like button. We should have 800 likes right now on this stream. So yeah, thanks everyone for being a part of what is for me as well and a brilliant show whenever we do this. I just hope we can have Martin and Kat on a little bit more often, to be fair. I know that you're mega busy, but we want you back on as soon as possible. So
that's really appreciated, and it's really good to be able to get the opportunity to have the conversation and try and explain a little bit more. You can't do everything in 280 characters or just a short email or whatever. So it's good to have the interaction. We're always really grateful for the opportunity to come on and try and explain things and take questions as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, our pleasure.
Okay. Where Martin and I are in 250, Lee, so we'll definitely need to see you if you're only 2 blocks along. And by all means, if you see us at a game, come and chat to us.
Of course.
Any of your listeners or viewers, you can always come and buttonhole us.
Well, listen, I mean, there's so much love for you guys here, and again, that represents just, the wonderful work you guys do. We will put, again, the link in the comments or the top of the pinned link for how you, again, can become a member. We'll make sure we hyperlink that as well for you guys. But listen, lovely to have you. We've heard the audience. We'll, like I say, try and get Kat and Martin on as more as we can. I think we've had you on. We're trying to at least make it a couple of months. So there's just, the thing is, when we bring Kat on, like I say, for this kind of length of show, we just want there to be obviously a good deal amount to talk about, which obviously is key to bringing these guys on. But we promise we hear our audience. We listen to you. There's been, like I say, so much love for you here. Kat bringing out the diva energy. She don't accept second best. God, get her in the boardroom with Parasagy and Levy. Honestly, I tell you, it's so much love for us here. Right.
Hit the like button.
Hit the like button. Listen to Lee McQueen. Lee, plugging us here, plugging us all night.
Plugging it away, mate. Mate, it's an amazing show. What we're doing, the guests that we've got on tonight, all the guests that we've had on so far, throughout the season have been absolutely fantastic. They give up their time again, nearly 2 hours of their time to interact with the fans. It's just been brilliant. Kat, Martin, absolutely superb.
Absolutely, I've got to completely agree. Oh, listen. Finally, guys, where can we find you on social media if fans do want to interact with you personally? Is that something you offer, or through the THST? How can they quickly do that? Kat, Martin, who wants to answer that one very quickly before we let you go?
I'm at Catspur71 on Twitter. Martin is the very originally named at Martin Cloake.
There we go.
On Twitter, and then the trust is THST official.
There you go. Fantastic. From Kat, from Martin, again, been lovely having these guys with us. We are back tomorrow, and we are back tomorrow. Listen,
we're back to normal. Good luck, fellas.
I'll tell you what, we're going to need the luck. There might be a lot of names.
Transfers.
There might be a lot of names coming that I'm going to have to learn to pronounce. So we're going to need you guys to come and help me. Fire me some DMs about how I can pronounce some of these names. But of course, we're live tomorrow evening from 8:30 UK time for our transfer countdown. You're going to see Jason McGovern. You can't lose his hair because he's got no hair to lose. Sorry, Jason, about that. But we're going to see the next 2.5 hours what comes our way for Tottenham in the transfer window. We may be having some, what I would say, some nice little snippets throughout the day potentially. So just keep an eye on the Last Word on Spurs YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed before, please subscribe. Again, listen, from Kat, Martin, lovely having these guys. And of course, myself and Lee. Guys, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you